Hey there, everybody. I'm indoors and I want to wax philosophical a little bit about what, why I'm so excited about where we are right now, where I am in my life, where this project is, where the project in Port Huron is, really where everything is placed in my life. Um, One thing I realized years and years ago was that life is all about negotiation. And I learned this from playing Monopoly. So in my mind, I kind of call what I'm about to say the Monopoly sermon. Now, I'm not about to um, heap praises on a game seemingly centered on capitalism. However, my experience with the game of Monopoly is when I was a kid, at a real young age, I quickly understood that the game is about negotiation, not about money. And I think 9/10 of people who play Monopoly still don't understand that what's happening on the board doesn't matter at all. It really doesn't. In comparison to your ability to interact with the other players, make trades, make alliances, offer sweet deals. Different houses have different house rules, but trades are pretty common house rule. Some house rules can get a little bit more exciting. Tell you what, if you let me get a pass on this property right here, you can have a pass on my boardwalk should you hit it anytime in the next 3 rotations. See what I mean? The game really is about negotiation. And when I was a kid, playing with my family, like we all did, I don't think I ever lost. And I don't mean first loser. I mean, I think I always won. Because once I realized that, I leaned into it so heavy, I couldn't be beat. And the bad news to that is that my family stopped playing Monopoly, at least with me around, from then on. And I was maybe 10, 11, 12. And it was because I realized that the game, whereas it's about numbers and knowing value and what's worth this and what's worth that, what people have sitting in front of them for deeds is really the game going on. So I would say this would rarely be the case, but say I had Boardwalk and they had Park Place. No force in this world is going to let that player let me get Park Place, particularly if they want Boardwalk, right? But I would look at what they had and see what's another thing they want. What's another direction their game could go should they so choose it, if it seems easier. And maybe it's getting all the greens or all the yellows or something like that. And then I'd look over and see who has those and what's available. And all of a sudden, my game would be not to get the most profitable properties as soon as I could, but the ones that had the most leverage and value to the other players. Reverse engineering that supply and demand, right? Assess the demand, build the supply accordingly. So I really, like I said, I really leaned into it. There were times that I would, for my own entertainment, come up with the longest chain of what I call the circle of needs, because it'll come back to what I want in the end. That each deal is an offer they can't refuse. How can I do that? And it got to the point where I would offer a sibling all my dollars except 10 for 2 of their 2 railroads. Railroads that meant nothing to them. They want all the money, but they don't know. I know the railroads do mean something to this person. and they have something that means something to this person. Maybe it circles back to me for a second. Then I go, you get it. So I would just stretch the limits of that, and players, I remember family members being like, I have to take this deal. I can't understand why he would make it, but I have to take it. And everyone at the table, don't do it. Every time you take his deals, it ruins, something happens, especially when they're crazy. I mean, there's a source of entertainment as well. But my point is, I got really good at that early on in life, and it has served me really well. Because even when people say, well, I don't want that, I can say, well, why don't you want that? And I say, well, I don't want that because X, Y, Z. Well, first of all, X and Z aren't even involved with that. So, and I can understand your concern for why. If we did it this way, Y wouldn't be there as well, and that works for me. Does that work for you? Well, actually, that would be all right. There we go. And I didn't convince or manipulate anybody there. I just said, okay, we went from A to T in our steps of logic. There's all kinds of options between A and T before we end up at Z. So, that having been said, as a young adult trying to figure out how to manage my way throughout the world and what I wanted to do with my life, it occurred to me that a masterpiece of a life very well lived, would be one enormous, just one, you got that, scratch that back, move it there, and then if you want, and I know this person is a bass player, and this person is a drummer, and if they and this songwriter's looking for, and so if you know me, follow what I do, you know I organize community, organize events, because that's all about negotiation. And in the end, sometimes I make no money, sometimes I make a little, but it's my goal that whatever comes back around to me at the end, I gotta make the most value out of that. Which may mean, if all I'm gonna get is press, to get all the press I can get. You know, if all I'm gonna get is money, then I need to get as much money as I'm gonna get. Like if I'm doing a job and they tell me we don't want you to film it. Okay, well, I might have to charge a little more, because part of how I create value is by filming things. So, again, all that having been said, I'm 44 years of age. And I have been stacking these dominoes and placing them and for a moment in my life where I could, with just the slightest breath on my end, a few bucks here and there, knock those first dominoes over and boom, 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 boom. Because not only do I know hundreds of people well and thousands of people fairly well, I know what motivates them. I'm asking, what are they into? What's the No, well, I would love to do this. Okay, A friend of mine, for instance, is a big theater guy. I asked him if he'd be interested in organizing a show of a play he wrote next summer. And and he said, this is very recently, and he said he wasn't so sure about that, but maybe he'd be fine with another company doing it and him getting royalties for it. So now I can figure out how to start a company that we have a play we can do, and I think it's a good play to do from an original local talent in that area. So again, and 2 days ago, all day long, while I'm out there working with the earth, it was epiphany after epiphany after epiphany, because I feel as though now, at this point in my life, I can push. And that is nearly 30 years in the making. So this is my commitment to myself, that whereas the last 20 years of my life have been a very public life, building a very public life as a poor man's activist, leveraging social media for the value I can create from it. Now I'm going to spend the next 20 years still doing everything I'm doing, but I don't need to stack those dominoes anymore. I get to spend the next 20 years building a very private life for my retirement when I'm in my 60s. So, or early retirement in my 60s. So I now know, because of things coming together a couple days ago, what I'm doing, where I'm going, and how I'm going to integrate everything I've done, literally everything I've done, into the where I'm going from here, like bookends. So that's a very long-winded. You want the short version? Zen Koan, all the way at the end, to what I'm saying? Never compromise. That's the short version. Because a good negotiation between partners, you will find a new and brand new, often brand new, option that serves both of you better than you thought possible going into the negotiation. A compromise is two entities coming together and both getting a little bit less than what they wanted just to move forward. Like dropping it in reverse before going into second. No. What you really want to do is find the thing that is maybe the new thing that serves you both better than you thought possible. Yep, and that's how you go from being a poor kid in a random town to a broke adult with infinite value of networking across the country. Yes. So we're doing this. It's time, folks.